ERICK Granados was born in El Salvador and moved with his family to East Palo Alto when he was 2. After high school, he served 4 years in the military, which changed him forever. Relatively few of the educators in East Palo Alto grew up there, but ERICK decided to return to his home turf to help others going through what he had suffered. He began in special education and went on to direct after-school programs for the Ravenswood City School District. He's now a site director for the Boys and Girls Club, serving hundreds of local youth annually. Most of these kids' families are struggling and need extra help, and ERICK is there to offer it. Every day, ERICK gives it, quietly, far beyond what is asked of him, out of his own time and often his own pocket. ERICK, tell me about your childhood. What was it like growing up in East Palo Alto? What was the best part and what was the worst?
I think growing up with a very loving mother, and just having my sister in my life, and just experiencing, I guess, everything about East Palo Alto during that time. It's all a memory now. And
what was the most difficult part? What was the most challenging for you?
I think during that era, it's a lot of challenges with drugs in the community, so that was a bit difficult.
What about school? I gather you didn't like school much and you wanted to leave it.
I wasn't all that studious growing up. However, I managed to get decent grades all through elementary and middle school. And it wasn't until high school where I had challenges, I guess.
What was different about high school?
I believe that the quality of the education that I received in East Palo Alto at the time wasn't adequate. So it set me up for failure.
And that tells you a lot about what your students are going through now, I would think, too.
I'd like to think that it's improved somewhat, and in the organization that I work for, and, it's a lot of people like myself that are trying to help support our students to get them to where they need to be.
So in high school, when school became a struggle, the military came to recruit. Tell me about that day.
Yeah, so because I struggled with school, I used to cut class a lot. And this one time we had recruiters trying to have students complete an aptitude test, the ASVAB. And I was 16 at the time, I remember. And I attended only because I was able to get that absence excused. So that was really how I got that started. And, they said that they talked to us about the career choices. They may be interesting to us and whatnot. So that's kind of how I got started, and that was in late November, I believe, and by March of the following year, I had enlisted in the Army.
At the time when you enlisted, how much, well, at the time they came to the school, how much did you know about what you were getting into?
Nothing. I didn't know anything. It's just what they tell you, how they present it to you, which is not all that accurate.
How is it not accurate from what you found out?
It's almost like a product that they're selling. The biggest reason for joining was, I guess, to leave the community and also to further my higher education. But they didn't really discuss what goes on in between, while you're actually serving.
So tell me about that. What were some of the, maybe rude awakenings?
Being told when to eat, sleep, and just about everything else. And it was a great experience, no regrets. But the truth is, and I don't think this is just for the Army, but probably all of the military branches, the military's needs come first. And that's something that I struggle with. Family is always first for me, So when my contract ended, I chose not to re-enlist. So.
How did that change you kind of inside in terms of what you were expecting going in and what you found?
I didn't really go in with any expectations. Like I said, I didn't know. But I acquired a lot of discipline while I was there. There's accountability for everything. If somebody arrives late to work here, nothing happens in the service. You'd be working all day. There's consequences. It's just a work ethic, knowing that you're going to work until they tell you not to work, and really relying on one another, you know, like your peers there, and knowing that you're not the only one in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Is it safe to say that the military saved you in some ways?
Absolutely. I think to me it was a stepping stone, and it allowed me an opportunity to not just leave my community, but to see it from a different perspective, you know, as an outsider. You know, I didn't know that anything else existed outside of the 2.2 square miles, you know, growing up as a kid. So,
Tell me more about that. What was your vision of the world outside of East Palo Alto before the military, especially with respect to race? How did you view Palo Alto?
there really was no vision. You know, it's very diverse. You know, African Americans, you know, Polynesians, you know, Latinos from different, you know, countries. And you know, but I think the culture was, you know, very similar for all of us in what we experienced inside of East Palo Alto.
How did you look at Caucasians before your military experience?
You know, in hindsight, you know, I grew up quite prejudiced, to be honest with you. A lot of it, maybe it was the media, maybe it's what was instilled, you know, by maybe the elders and their experience. And it wasn't until, once again, I was in the military in boot camp, actually, where I had an epiphany, you know, and the drill sergeant, you know, spoke some words that really allowed me to open up my eyes and just let go of that.
Tell me about that.
It has profanity, so I'd rather not.
Well, just
you know,
bleep and work around it.
You know, the drill sergeants, I remember, you know, he said that the same person that you don't like because they're, you know, black, white, pink, or purple, maybe said that the same person to save your life in battle. And just the thought of that, you know, just allowed me to just take a step back and, you know, realize that, you know, we have more in common than we do different. And I was able to build a lot of, you know, great relationships with people that had nothing to do with race, you know, so.
Why did you choose to come back to a somewhat troubled home turf?
It's home, and it's what's comfortable. You know, I've lived in Mountain View since 2005, I believe. But to me, East Palo Alto is home. My family all lives there. Friends all live there. You know, I worked there since I got out of the military. That's just what I'm comfortable with. You know, my world revolves around East Palo Alto.
What did you learn in the military, in the outside world, as it were, that you brought back and wanted to give back?
I think the skill set didn't necessarily translate to what I'm doing now, but I think, you know, my employees have always appreciated my work ethic. You know, the first person that hired me, I worked for the special education department for the Ravenswood City School District, and Dr. Holland, you know, Carol Holland, her son was in the Marines, you know, so I felt like we had a bonding moment during the interview, and you know, that allowed me an opportunity to try out a job that was meant to be temporary, and that turned into a 10-year stint with the district. So.
And all that started with this work ethic that presumably you didn't have before you went to the military?
Well, I was young, so I
Yeah.
didn't have that experience, you know, but I think it was a, you know, good foundational experience.
Mm-hmm. And you are in the process of passing that mindset on now?
Absolutely, trying, you know, not just with the children that I work with, but also my son.
Yeah, yeah. You have said that you gravitate to troubled kids. Why is that?
I see a lot of myself in a lot of these children, you know. And it's easy for us to pass judgment sometimes without really knowing what's going on in the kids' lives, you know, so try to keep an open mind and an open heart.
Now, you did suffer from abuse, among other things, when you were a child. Do you think there are things in your past, in your own personal experience, that give you a different perspective or a different way of connecting or even picking up on things?
I think so. You know, I grew up in an abusive household, you know, through my father, you know, my sister and I. And not that I can necessarily pick up on that specific abuse with other students, but you know, you can just see the hurt sometimes, you know. So I always try to be that one person for those kids, you know, and I'm not the only one. All of my staff, everybody that works, not just at my site, but I think for the organization has the same mindset, you know. So we all have students that gravitate towards specific individuals, and those are the relationships that we get to build with these kids. So.
Tell me, for people who have not grown up with abuse, about that hurt that they're suffering from and how you can reach it.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in that realm, so I wouldn't know. But it's taken me a lot of years to deal with it. So I think for me, just having unconditional love for the students and just being a loving person. Something so simple, I think the kids miss out on sometimes. So.
What do you mean? What's the simple part that they miss out on?
Just giving the students your time, your attention. Just letting the students be who they are, letting them vent. Oftentimes we internalize our feelings. So I tend to let the students just kind of speak their mind, and not to speak monotone necessarily when I'm speaking with them, but just allowing them to express themselves as they do, and redirect their energies after the fact.
Now, speaking of redirecting energies, you said something to me that really surprised me. You said you used to have a lot of anger. You look like one of the most calm, unangry people I can imagine. Where did it go, and how did you deal with it?
I'm not sure where it went, but I see it as energy that I've been able to channel in working with the kids. That mindset wasn't productive for me. It wasn't positive. I look forward to going to work every day, being greeted by the students, shaking their hands and, hugging the students, whatever it is that the students need, and I just feel like working with the students, it just, gives me life.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you help them? You must see students who are angry.
Oh, all the time.
How do you work with that?
I think first and foremost, just validating their feelings.
And is that rare? Do they not get that much elsewhere?
I think we can do a better job of doing that for our kids. Like I said, just allowing them, to feel the way that they feel.
Can you think of an instance where that stands out, where a kid was turned around, that because of you?
I don't think I can attribute anything solely to me. It's everything.
You
is
were
a team
present
effort.
and
I was
facilitated.
present. Yes. I think it's happened more than once where students sometimes have behavioral issues. Sometimes it's it can be related to ADHD. Sometimes it's maybe abuse. I don't know. And just allowing them to be themselves and trying to give them strategies to address their issues. I've had some students where I said, if you feel like you're getting upset or you need some space, let the teacher know so you can step outside and take a break before you get in trouble. Taking the time to have these conversations with the students versus just trying to be a disciplinarian.
And you do see that working?
Absolutely. It's part of building relationships with the students. And like I said, I think everybody at the site does that. Has their own group of students that they mentor.
What was one of the most challenging or difficult situations you can remember?
Oh, I have to think about that one.
Which one to choose?
I think being able to support the students in learning about everything that the students go through, and being willing to continue doing that job, because it takes a toll on you emotionally.
Have you ever felt at a loss? I can't do anything for this kid.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then what do you do?
I continue trying. Recently I was speaking to a parent about some issues that she was having with her child, and I couldn't provide any professional feedback to her, but I can relate to her as a parent. So I was able to connect with the parent in that capacity. I feel like she really appreciated that. And so I don't have all the answers, but I think it's always important to try to provide resources for the parents. So that's what I try to do for the parents. Just be a resource. So like I said, I may not have the answer, but just try to support them.
You've talked also about vulnerability. Tell me about that.
I think just based on my own background, I tend to, really keep, my feelings in check, to myself. But I realized that in order to connect with, the students and the families, I have to open up myself. And just as I've shared with you guys today, about my personal abuse. Sometimes we see the students and we think that everything is great and not giving any thought to the challenges that they may face at home. And being willing to have these conversations with the students, a lot of one-on-one conversations, and trying to find some common ground, allowing that to build a relationship.
Well, in fact, when I asked you when we first met what was the most difficult part, you said you're being vulnerable. Why is that so hard?
I think it's an uncomfortable feeling, I like being in control, of my own feelings, and feeling vulnerable, you have to really open up yourself to whatever emotions you're feeling, But I think it's important for the students that I work with to see me, in that capacity, just as human as they are.
Do you see in them a softening? Do you see when they sense that you're vulnerable?
Absolutely. I remember, I've done this for over a decade. Early on, I remember students coming to me and hugging me, and it was a little awkward for me. I'm like, I didn't know what to do, Whereas now I've embraced it. I have a child who comes to me every day, and it's like she needs her hug, and I give it to her, and it's just, and it's interactions like that, like I said, that give me life,
Yeah, I was going to say you give a lot, but it sounds like you get something too.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very gratifying. Never thought that I'd be working in this capacity. Never gave any thought to working in education or working with children. This is, I guess, just what God had in store for me.
Wow. And yet, at one point, you almost quit. Why?
Absolutely. I think it goes back to what I told you about being vulnerable. It takes a toll to hear some of the struggles that the students go through, and it's not like you go home and forget about it. So in that instance, it was just consuming me. So it's really, trying to find an outlet and just acceptance. Realizing that we can't control everything, we can't fix everything, and just doing the best that you can, and there's nothing else I can do.
What's the hardest lesson to learn for you?
Letting go, it's still a work in progress, knowing when to move on.
And you give a lot, time, things, money, and so. How does that not become an infinite, vacuum or sinkhole?
It just doesn't feel that way for me. I look forward to going to work every day. Sometimes when we're on vacation, I miss that interaction. I miss what I would consider a white noise. You're in the cafeteria with 140, 150 kids, and I'm just at home, and it's just so quiet. I go stir crazy, so it's just.
Have you ever told them that?
No, I don't want to.
Maybe you shouldn't.
No, I shouldn't.
Now, I understand that probably the ultimate test of what you get from this is these kids, if maybe indirectly, have done something for you that is very difficult and most people have a hard time doing anyway. You quit smoking, and you attribute that to the kids. Tell me about that.
I've been smoking since I was 16, so I smoked for about 20 years. But I've been trying to quit for as long as I've been smoking. That's an addiction for you. But in working with the students and living in the community for many years after coming out of the service, might encounter students in the neighborhood while I was just out hanging out, smoking a cigarette, and for me it's so important to lead by example. So I'd always end up putting the cigarette out or throwing it out, and I was oftentimes frustrated because it would be my last one. But it was just so important for me to set that example for the students. Even when my son was born, he's going to learn through this video that I was a smoker.
Was
Past absolutely
tense,
was.
That's
yes,
the
yes.
important part.
And that, I think, he was my biggest motivator just to quit smoking. And like I said, it was an addiction. It took me 20 years.
Wow.
And it's been almost 2 years now, and I just feel so good. I just can't wrap my head around what connected me to that for so long. You know.
What is the biggest, or the biggest one or two, things that you really want to impart to the kids you work with?
I think just, you know, to dream and to not let anybody discourage you. You know, I think sometimes we get caught up in our own little world. You know, I just had a young man come to the school a few weeks ago to inform me that he had been accepted to a you know, university. I think it was Humboldt State, I believe. And, you know, that was one of the happiest moments for me, you know, because I don't see the students succeeding as much as I would personally like, you know. And this young man specifically, you know, he's been through a lot himself, and he was a handful as a young man, you know. And I put you know, a lot of effort, you know, many years into mentoring him while he was in the program with me years ago. And, you know, so to see it go full circle, you know, just made my day, and just really, you know, reinvigorated me, you know.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work. Congratulations on your award, and thanks
you.
so much for coming.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you know someone who has overcome significant hardship and has an inspiring story to tell? Someone who has sacrificed or given over and above to the community and deserves some recognition? If so, please contact us with your nomination for next year's Local Hero Awards. To find out more about our local heroes and to watch interviews with all the winners, visit our website, midpenmedia.org. At the Midpen Community Media Center, you can make your own videos and television programs and take classes in all aspects of media production. You can also hire our professional services team. To find out more about that, go to mcproservices.com. Congratulations to all our winners, and thank you for watching.